All right, shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
It's brothers from Great Millstone, Charlotte, coming back with another Lord willing edifying lesson to feed the elect of the nation of Israel. And before we get started, we want to give our honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rachah HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And peace and salutation to the elect that's out here laboring in all truth and sincerity. To you, we say shalom.
Shalom. Okay, so just a quick lesson, man. Through the Spirit, we seeing the spirit of the world right now in regards to the whole Strait of Hormuz and, the lack of resources coming, right, and the famines and things of that nature that are about to hit the earth, right? We seeing people making the wrong preparations, man, right? When they should be making preparations in the Spirit, right? Well, because that's the only thing that's going to be able to provide for us in these times to come, man, right? No amount of heaping things unto yourself is going to allow you to survive, right, through these coming calamities, man.
Right. If I can add, because everything that's going on, the Lord is making the elect lean on Him. All right. While the rest of the world is looking at the tangible things of Babylon to be able to sustain themselves, man. All these different things, the Lord is about to He's about to take away or confound, because, like I said, the main thing is He wants to be worshipped by His people. All right. So only you see the elect are only ones making the proper preparations and provisions to seek the Lord while He may be seen. All right. Which, matter of fact, I'll grab that real quick. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 1. It reads, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, when the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them." And that's what we have been, calling out for our people to be doing, is to seek Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua while He may be found. Because once these final prophecies, come past, the Lord is going to shut up access to Him. That's why at the end of the day, like you were saying, everybody's, making the proper preparations to prepare carnally, but spiritually is the main thing that you need to be doing to prepare for your, for your time of testing, because the whole world is about to be put, under that microscope to see, are you truly believing in the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua that have been, given to you by the prophets of the Lord? Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of our people be confounded and ultimately, find themselves in precarious situations, which is going to lead to them taking the chip and being destroyed. So, grabbing this here in the book of Romans, chapter 13 and 4. In fact, let's start at 4. It says, "For He is the minister." I might as well start from 1 for context. Okay. It says, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. The powers that be ordained the powers that be are ordained of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua."
All right. So as you read in Isaiah 19, right, where it talks about the idols of Egypt being moved, right? Yahushua, as the scriptures say, all judgment has been given unto the Son.
Yep.
He has control over all these entities, man. Right? I think it's in Colossians, where it talks about how He's above all principalities.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, what we're seeing right now is everything that people put their faith in as a so-called deity, right, is starting to fail them, man.
"Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation."
Right, and resisting the Lord is not doing His will, man. Right, and putting your faith and trust in things that aren't going to profit you. Right, and this is what we see taking place in the earth. Right, the whole earth has resisted the will of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua to no avail, man. Right, because all these things are still going to come to pass. You and Cap did the lesson about not hiding your head in the sand. Right, and that's pretty much what people are doing. They talk about ostriches, right? They stick their head in the sand, but everything is still going on around them, man. Right, even though you can't see it or hear it, it's still gonna happen, man.
Right, and that's another thing too I want to add, because what this scripture is going to be used for, in the sense of Esau trying to weaponize these scriptures in his benefit, they're going to tell these pastors and these governors and people of influence to tell the people to pretty much, be subject to the powers that may be. Now, we understand that under Esau Edom's, his laws, yeah, we have to be subject unto him, but that only goes as far as you pretty much, obeying until they have you sin against your power. Right. And so that's why at the end of the day, like I said earlier, you have to make yourself known unto the Lord and to his ways, so that you understand who is the one that's really in control. Because to the average man, all right, you look at what's going on and you see that these devils are literally making themselves God on earth. So the logical thing that you would think to do would be to, they're about to, bring a famine, so yeah, we're going to store up on food. We're going to store up on water. We're going to plan to live off the grid, survival kits and all this other shit. But that's not the way out, man. The way out is through your faith in the Lord and knowing that if you obey Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that he's going to protect you.
That's it.
Verse 3, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will thou then not be afraid of the power? Do what which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of Yahweh Shem Yahushua to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil.
Right, so these martial law troops, these ICE agents, right? These are all, the sword of the Lord, man.
Yep.
Right? He's using them to judge 2/3, man.
Yep.
Right, so we have no fear. If you're doing the will of the Lord, you shouldn't fear these things, man, because the Lord ultimately, is in charge of them. He put Esau, right, as the overseer, so to speak, but ultimately it's the will of the Lord being exercised in the earth.
Yeah, because the Lord can use these individuals to aid you in your time of trouble. We know it's some jakes that's going to be amongst them. All right, and the Lord could put the spirit on them, or even if it's a heathen, to pretty much be in a situation that could benefit you. Mm-hmm. But if you're wicked, ultimately those individuals, like you named, the Gurga troops, the UN troops, whoever, the martial law troops, they're going to be used to punish the wicked, because that's part of the Lord's sword, all right, for judgment against the wicked, man. Mm-hmm.
And pretty much, going into the spirit of people making preparation, right? That's why we know we don't have to store up guns and ammunition and things of that nature, man.
Yeah, shoot it out with the troops and shit.
Right. Right. What does the scripture say? If you talking about how your enemies shall be at peace with thee.
Yeah.
Right. If you're doing the will of the Lord, he's gonna clear that path, man.
Right.
Right. We're not gonna have to be right in these shoot 'em out battles with with these people out here, man.
Right. Continuing on, verse 6, for this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are Yahweh Shem Yahushua's ministers, attending continually upon the very thing. Render therefore to all their dues tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any commandment, if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. How far you want to go down?
Where you at right now?
That's verse 9. I'm about to read verse 10.
Let me see.
And this, ultimately, this is just going into the wisdom on how to, move in these days. Because when you're, when you're moving in the spirit, ultimately, you're going to treat individuals, whether they're an Israelite or a heathen, with the respect to where they're not going to have anything ill will against you. Mm-hmm. Unless the Lord put that spirit on them to have. But, you know, in that day, man, the elect is going to have a covering to where, you know, you're not gonna have to worry about being sought out, all right, by motherfuckers that you got beef with or some shit like that.
Right.
You know, now if you got troops chasing you and all that, you know, that's the spirit, that's the Lord. You know how He wanted the story to be written or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're following the ways of the Lord, man, provisions will be made for you, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
No, you do 14.
Read down 14.
Okay.
All right. It says, "Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law, and that knowing the time that now it is high time to awake out of sleep."
Right. So we're in the time to wake out of sleep, man. It's too much going on to be just a passerby, man.
Yeah.
Right. For people, you know, you see people walking by the camps, right? People trying to ignore what's happening in the news and things of that nature, man. It's too much going on domestically, geopolitically, right? Economically, right? Even in people's interpersonal lives, man. Right?
Yep.
Everything is ramping up, man.
Yep.
You know, that's how we know the spirit is working, right, to our favor.
Yep.
You know?
Everything that we have been, you know, saying for years, starting with our elders and apostles and elder bishops, is now coming to pass. So, like brothers have been saying, ain't too much scoffing really being done at this point, because not everybody's eyes are tuned to, you know, prophecy, man. Everybody's seeing what's going on, and there's the Hebrew Israelites, they were right, they were onto it, man. You know,
Right.
it says, and that knowing the time that now is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than we believe. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, nor in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put ye on the Lord Yahushua Hamashiach, and make not provisions for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof.
Right, and that's the point, man. Make not provisions to the flesh, man. Right? Don't follow your... they talk about follow your heart in the world, right?
Yeah.
You know, but don't do what the Spirit is guiding you to do, man.
Yeah.
Right? What the will of the Lord is instructing you to do. You know, because when you make your own decisions, right? What's the scripture say? The end of those ways, the ways of man, is death, man.
Yeah, that's why the scriptures say, lean on your own understanding. Because if you're not guided by the Spirit of the Lord, you will find yourself being, you know, at a position of destruction, man. You know, that's why, like you were saying, the provisions are all being made in the Spirit. So the best thing you could do, like it says in Matthew the 6th chapter, is to store up your treasures in heaven, man.
Exactly.
Now, there's nothing wrong with, you know, buying a little bit of extra food, and if you have a firearm, you know, you did all the you know, proper legal shit to be able to have that. But at the end of the day, we know that that's not going to save us, man.
Right.
Just to add to you real quick, this is Jeremiah 17:5. Thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart departed from the Lord. All right, this is why you can't think that a man is going to be able to save you, whether it's yourself or somebody else. The Yahweh Shah, that's the curses, man.
Right.
Deuteronomy 28:68. No man shall redeem you, no man shall buy you, no man is going to save you, except Yahweh Shai, man. That's his role, man. And so that's why the Lord is putting us in situations to where we have to totally rely on Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai to get us out those situations, man. That's the standard that's going to be lifted, man. That's the miracles that we're waiting on, that the Lord is going to perform to show us that He is. Exactly. All right, because while the rest of the world they're relying on carnal means, man, guns, bullets, food, water, underground bunkers, or whatever the fuck they're using. We're relying strictly off the words of the Lord, man.
Exactly. Like that scripture said, they're making flesh their arm, man. And that goes into your power.
Yeah. Right,
and which means you're denying the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man.
Right, because if you have the true understanding, you know there's no power in our hands, man. The Lord literally called us worms. A worm is a defenseless creature, open to all predators to come and you know, eat it or kill it. And that's the situation we're in. We're completely defenseless against the arsenal that this devil is about to release onto the earth. But we know that spiritually we are heavily armored and protected, not only, you know, through our faith, but also through the angels that the Lord has surrounded around all the elect, man.
Right.
So we don't have to make any carnal preparations because we know the Spirit of the Lord is already handling all that, man. You know.
I want to get this word for provision real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So the Adam Online Dictionary for provision, it says foresight, prudence, care, also a providing beforehand, action of arranging in advance. And we know the Lord has set these things before time, man. Right? Mm-hmm. He's already written the script and laid out the path that we're gonna take, man. Right? And why would we take it upon ourselves to try to make those preparations for him, man?
Right.
You know?
That's why he tells us, you know, I forget what chapter in Matthew is that. He's like, take no thought for tomorrow, for tomorrow shall pretty much take thought for itself. I'll be paraphrasing.
Exactly. Let me get that in Proverbs.
I got a precept.
You go get that.
This is Job chapter 23 and verse 12. This is the proper preparation that we're supposed to be taking. It says, neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. Because just adding on to what we read earlier in Romans 13, it says, I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. All right. So, hey, you should be laboring for the meat that will never perish, man. This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, as it says in Isaiah 33 and 6, will be the stability of thy time and strength of salvation, man. And it's all predicated on the fear of the Lord. Because when you know that it's Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua in control, and you have no choice but to be subject to the power that be, man. Because the true power, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, he controls this devil. So he's going to be the one that ultimately, you know, determines if you're going to be, shipped off to a concentration camp, if you're going to have to, live out in the wilderness, if your family's going to be separated, all that's all in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua's mind and what he has written for you. And if those things are to happen, know that the victory for you is still written if you're of the elect, man.
Yep.
You know? So this is why you have to cling on to the words of the Lord. That's why it tells us the words were written aforetime, were written for our learning, man. Mm-hmm. All right? You got it.
It's Proverbs 22 and 3. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. Right? And we've been given that foresight, right? And everybody's been presented the opportunity, right, to have this foresight and make those preparations. But we see those who see what's coming down the pipe in the flesh, they're making those fleshly provisions, man.
That's right.
Right? But we're making the provision in the spirit. That's why it says he hideth himself, right? And we're doing what? Hiding ourselves in the house of the Lord, man. Right? The only house that's going to be able to withstand this storm. It says, but the simple pass on and are punished, right? So everybody else who refused is going to receive recompense according to that, man. Right? That's why, let me get this in Isaiah 27, or not Isaiah, Psalm 27.
Oh, that's spirit. I'm right here. Where you going to? Verse 4? Yeah, spirit. This is Psalms 27 and 4. It says, one thing have I desired of the Lord, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. Right.
That's the main goal, man. Right. Is to dwell in the house of the Lord.
Yep.
So that's the only place that's going to provide protection.
Yep.
Right. Like they had the houses with the blue roofs over there in Hawaii.
Yeah. Right.
Right. That's what we're about to be, man. You know, we're going to avoid that beam of judgment, right, that the Lord is sending down, man.
But what does that ultimately predicate from? Going back to Egypt, we just came out the Passover.
Exactly.
All right. The Lord's going to pass over us because we have that blood on our spiritual doorpost, which is the door of our mind, man. So, Lord willing, we're of the elect, like you said, that judgment is going to pass over all of us that have been making the Lord our provision instead of taking matters into our own hands. Verse 5, it says, for in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle, he shall hide me. He shall set me upon a rock.
And that rock being Yahweh Shai, man. Right? When you go into that house, he's going to put you in your spot, and you're going to stay there until the storm passes, man.
Yeah.
Right? Just like, they tell you to hide in the bathtub
or
not during the tornado. Right? This is what the Lord is doing. He's saying, look, you did what you needed to do to get inside. now I need you to do this in order to stay safe. And
Yeah.
then we're going to come out and be in rejoice, man.
That's right.
Right? But the rest of the world is refusing that covering, man, or trying to build their own house, man. Right? And we see what happened to the 3 little pigs, right? You know, right? Them houses getting blown down, man.
Nah, facts.
You know, even going into Ezekiel 13th chapter to talk about that untempered mortar.
Yeah.
Right? Everything that, it's a facade of protection, but ultimately it's going to get blown away.
That's why Psalms 127:1. Hey, pretty much the house was built in vain if it's not in the name of the Lord, roughly paraphrasing. But our house, like you said, Proverbs 18:10, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. So the Lord is giving us a sanctuary to run into, like you said, that pavilion. And ultimately that pavilion is going to lead to the chariot. The chariots, that's the first sign of salvation. When the Lord cracks them clouds and we see those spaceships, man, Lord willing, with the elect, hey, we're going to cry out in joy, because we know that, hey, our warfare has been accomplished. So when we see Yahushua and the angels, man, we know that, hey, this thing is up, and we're literally about to go home, man.
That's right.
So that's why, hey, we just continue to do what we're doing, keep the faith, hey, keep the fight, continuing to do what we need to do in the spirit of the Lord to prepare us for this great and dreadful day, man, because we here.
That's it.
You got anything else?
No, that was it.
All right, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. We're going to close it out by giving all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rachah HaKodash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And peace and salutation to the elect. Until next time, we say Shalom.
Shalom.